Economy and happiness. Economists have spent most of the 20th century ignoring psychology, positive or otherwise. I think this was written a little while back. I think now they are focusing too much on psychology. Everything is behavioral. Right? I read so much behavioral thing that I want these guys to just shut up. But today there is a great deal of emphasis on how happiness can shape global economies. I'm not liking this passage. Right? So, or on a smaller scale, successful business practice. This is driven in part by a trend in measuring positive emotions, mostly so they can be optimized. Measuring happiness, optimizing it. I don't like all of this. And neuroscientists, for example, claim to be able to locate specific emotions such as happiness or disappointment in particular areas of the brain. Wearable technologies such as Spire offer data-driven advice on how to reduce stress. Data-driven advice, wearable technologies, somebody claiming to monitor, measuring positive emotions. I'm not as individually, I'm looking at this passage and I'm being turned off. Fine, so I don't like all of this. We're no longer just dealing with happiness in a philosophical or romantic sense. I like the double quotes. I think there could be hope yet for this passage. Measuring is in double quotes and happiness is in double quotes. It's a very important thing. Right? So if I'm putting something in double quotes, then I'm building up to demolish it. I'm going to have a go at it. I'm not agreeing with this. Fine, let's see this. Let's keep reading. It has become something that can be monitored and measured, including by our behavior, use of social media, and bodily indicators such as pulse rate and facial expressions. There is nothing automatically sinister about this trend. I think there is. The author is being very kind. But it's disquieting that the businesses and experts driving the quantification of happiness claim to have our best interests at heart. Yay! The author is back. And so far I was worried that he might be, it looked like he's saying they've ignored psychology, psychology is important, behavior tracking and all that. But he set all that up to have a go at them. Fine, so he's not happy with this. It is disquieting that the businesses and experts driving the quantification of happiness. You cannot quantify happiness. The attempt itself is wrong. This is wonderful speech by a guy called Tim Minchin where he says 9 golden rules. I think I've shared it a bunch of times where he talks about happiness. Specifically, he says, if you think too much about it, it goes away. I'm part of that group. Anyway, coming back to our own passage. In the workplace, happy workers are viewed as a win-win. Nonsense. And win-win is a bogus phrase. Work becomes more pleasant and employees more productive. All noble objectives. But if you monitor the crap out of something, you just feel good about it, but it doesn't go anywhere. But this is now being pursued through the use of performance evaluating wearable technology, such as Human Sign or Virgin Pulse. And I hope I never work in an organization that uses any of these things. I hope none of you ever do as well. Both of which monitor physical signs of stress and activity toward the goal of increasing productivity. I get wound up when people use this to improve their own productivity individually. Fine. So sometimes I think they get too caught up on measuring how much they have run and how much they have walked and how their pulse rate is and heart rate is, and I think that contributes to stress more than anything else. But that is at least individually each of us inviting trouble and one more metric for ourselves. And what doesn't work for me could work for 100 people. I can appreciate that. But if the company puts this in, that's a whole new level of creepy. Cities such as Dubai, which has pledged to become the happiest city in the world. Oh, the irony of ironies. Dubai has pledged to become the happiest city in the world. Dubai is one of the most stratified countries in the world. It's feudal. It is like Victorian era Britain or medieval feudal zamindari era India. It's classically feudal. Dream up ever more elaborate and intrusive ways of collecting data on well-being, to the point where there is now talk of using CCTV cameras to monitor facial expressions in public spaces. Oh, that will be the beautiful extension. End point of all this nonsense will be that. New ways of detecting emotions are hitting the market all the time. One company, Beyond Verbal, ideal for our VARC session, aims to calculate moods conveyed in a phone conversation, potentially without the knowledge of at least one of the participants. Oh, everything is without the knowledge of participants. Your phone now tracks everything. Everything. And nobody ever tells us what it is tracking. It was this beautiful thing that I read. The calculator wants to access your contact book. I think it was a joke, but we've reached that point. And Facebook has demonstrated that it could influence our emotions through tweaking our news feeds. Brilliant. The only thing is they're not seeking happiness, they're seeking outrage. Opening the door to ever more targeted manipulation in advertising and influence. Oh, definitely. As the science grows more sophisticated and technologies become more intimate with our thoughts and bodies, a clear trend is emerging, where happiness indicators were once used as a basis to reform society, challenging the obsession with money that GDP measurement entrenches. They're increasingly used as a basis to transform or discipline individuals. So I've been a fan of this. Some of the countries are obsessed with GDP. And so countries like India, such as India, we should be. Our growth is a fundamental driver. But if you're a Denmark or a Sweden, you can have 5 years of no growth, and citizens year on year could become happier and better and would have better lifestyle. And so this obsession with growth could be a bad thing for them. Like if the poor in our country need to work, the rich can find balance. So if you're well off, then you're at 50, you can retire and go golfing and do exercise and make yourself happier and have more fulfilling lives. That means you'll be contributing to GDP less, but you're happier. So that's a good thing. So richer countries should also chase that. But that is not the happiness movement that this guy is talking about. Happiness becomes a personal project that each of us must now work on, like going to the gym. Since the 1970s, depression has come to be viewed as a cognitive or neurological defect in an individual and never a consequence of circumstances. If you're depressed, it's your fault. That seems to be the theme. All of this simply escalates a sense of responsibility each of us feels for our own feelings, and with it, the sense of failure when things go badly. We set astronomical targets, be governed by what everybody else says, find the compelling need to feel responsible for ourselves, and be bitterly disappointed when things don't go our way. A society that deliberately removed certain sources of misery, such as precarious and exploitative employment, may well be a happier one. But we won't get there by making this single, often fleeting emotion the overarching goal. Happiness is an objective best attained by doing a bunch of other things and not chasing that per se. At least I'm a huge believer in that. Fine, I don't see this thing that's be happy intrinsically. You do things that these are the drivers for your happiness. Have this tablet and have that medicine and do this thing, all with a single objective of increasing happiness. Rarely successful. You do things that are meaningful. You do things that you have fun with. Have some discipline. Enjoy yourself. You will incidentally, automatically, inevitably become happier. And at least that is my view. I've not read any of these books on happiness. Who am I? Fine. So let's jump to the questions. According to the author, wearable technologies and social media are contributing most to happiness as a personal project. They are perhaps, but I don't think it'll be contributing most to. Depression as a thing of the past. No, you'll be depressed in different forms. You'll be clearly shown to you that you're not happy. Disciplining individuals to be happy. I'm liking that. I'm liking this. Right? Making individuals aware of the stress in their lives. Yeah, but that's not the key point. Right? So, wearable technologies and social media are contributing most of the time. We've talked about wearable technologies, large parts of the passage. Only the last part, he talks of it as an individual project like going to the gym. Before that, gigantic portions are about corporate usage and governmental usage. And so disciplining individuals to be happy would be the best choice, and that'd be the crappiest way of getting somebody to be happy. Disciplining someone to be happy, or regimenting someone to be happy, mandating someone to be happy, can't happen, won't happen. And so choice C. The author's view would be undermined by which of the following research findings? There is a definite move towards the adoption of wearable technology that taps into emotions. He'll be peeved with this. He'll be peeved with this, but his view won't be undermined. His view would be supported. People are liking this, not the answer. Stakeholders globally are moving away from collecting data on well-being. Yeah, he'll like it. He's suggesting that these creepy people are all over the place. They're out to get your data and manipulate you. If stakeholders globally are moving away from collecting data, that'll undermine his view. A proliferation of gyms that are collecting data on consumer well-being. Yeah, this is a small thing. If they're collecting the data from your fingertips and your bloodstream and your emotions and your apps. So the gym collecting data could be a small part of the problem, but any which way it's not undermining. Individuals worldwide are utilizing technologies to monitor and increase their well-being. That they are doing it on their own. So this will not undermine the author's premise. The author's premise is that we're doing too much of it, and the fact that corporates and governments are doing it. And so not this. Choice B would be the right answer. In the author's opinion, the shift in thinking in the 70s. I've forgotten what the shift in thinking was. Let's look at this. Since the 70s, depression has come to be viewed as a cognitive or neurological defect in the individual and never a consequence of circumstances. Nice. So the shift in the 70s, after the 70s, people are attributing the root cause of depression to you, to the individual, and not to circumstances. You have to fight back. You have to be in control of your emotions. No matter what the world throws at you, you should be capable and resilient. So somehow, as it is, you're depressed, and then you're adding layer of guilt also onto it. You're depressed because of yourself. Right? Was a welcome change from the earlier view that depression could be cured by changing circumstances. No, making you feel bad. Introduce greater stress into people's life as they were expected to be responsible for their own happiness. True, but it's subtle. It's saying responsible for their own happiness. That might still be true. Responsible for their own depression would have been more appropriate. The happiness and depression are not on the same straight line. Right? But it's a good choice. Let's see if we can get something juicier, or we'll go for B. Put people in touch with their own feelings rather than depending on psychologists. Nothing to do with this. Reflected the emergence of neuroscience as authority on human emotions. No. Not only were you depressed, you were told that it was your fault. That is the issue. That is choice B. From the passage, we can infer that the author would like economists to. What would he like them to do? He would like them to not take too many of these behavioral things. Be careful about the extrapolation they do. Not tap into data in any form. Not just economists, everyone. Let's look at the choices. Incorporate psychological findings into their research cautiously. Yeah, this is true. Don't jump in and make conclusions on happiness and say this is what is happening. So behavioral study is important, crucial, but don't make extrapolation. These are behavioral. And I read a wonderful article which said sometimes the behavioral study is being quantified to a level that it cannot really accommodate. And this is an extreme example of that. Some streams of study are per se not quantifiable. So as mathematicians and economists and scientists, we're used to quantifying and measuring and working on a scale, putting a number to things. And therefore we go into behavioral territory and try to measure that as well. This fetish for measurement should be extended only to measurable things. To other things, you should acknowledge that they cannot be measured and find other ways of handling them. But the economist is uncomfortable, so he wants to measure everything. So he'll measure happiness also. That causes trouble. And anyway, choice here looks nice, but let's look at the other ones. Correlate measurements of happiness with economic indicators. The author is saying, for the love of God, don't do this. Don't necessarily have to go down that route. Measure of happiness is good, but if it gets overly intrusive, it becomes creepy. Measure the effectiveness of Facebook and social media advertising, not mentioned anywhere in the passage. Work closely with neuroscientists to understand human behavior. No, they're not talking about any collaboration between economists and neuroscientists. And it's become a big theme these days. Economists and neuroscientists running a bunch of podcasts and both treading onto each other's territory, especially economists going onto neuroscientist territory. How you feel being tapped into. All good to manipulate people at some level. If you're looking to commercially exploit it, understand people if you're looking to just academically see what is happening. But there's so many lines could be crossed that I'm always worried when an economist says, I want to measure how well you feel. So choice A. According to the author, Dubai, this is an easy question, is on its way to becoming one of the world's happiest cities. No, it is not. Collaborates with Facebook to selectively influence its inhabitants' moods. I mean, it's not from this passage. Maybe they are doing it, but the passage is not saying that. Develops sophisticated technologies to monitor its inhabitants' states of mind. Yes, they're monitoring our faces from CCTV, for God's sake. Incentivizes companies that prioritize worker welfare. No, nothing is being hinted. Choice C, easy one.